We gather here to discuss a not only controversial but a popular topic. Who is to blame in relationships, men or women, when it comes to dating each other? Who is at fault? Now, before I get into this, before I give you my personal opinion on this, I just want to note nowadays the opinion of the young man, the young women is not really respected as much. Why? Because we don't have the experience to back what the things that we're saying, which is reasonable. If you're a logical person and you think about it, well, he's a young person. He hasn't really experienced everything. But it's important to note that before you were 30, you were 20. Before you were 20, you were 5. And there's a reason why if you want to learn 2 languages, it's actually better to do it as a kid, because why? You're able to pick up on things way more easily. You're more susceptible to things. And so I think it's very important for the young generation to speak on things, because this is the time that we're being molded. This is the time where it actually affects what will go on later in life. So furthermore, I want to give my opinion on this matter. Who is at fault? I've noticed 2 very prominent groups. On one side is a group supporting men, and the other is supporting women in retaliation of men. Now, these 2 groups are utterly separated, but guess what? They still date. As much as people say, well, they hate the other gender, or they dislike, or the other gender is to blame, they still put themselves in the dating marketplace. And I think this is the huge problem, because when you ask me, who is to blame? Well, I think that answer is pretty easy. It comes down to a phrase that's very popular. Hurt people hurt people. Now, I don't think this phrase at all is truthful one bit. I think the proper phrase should be bitter people, bitter people. Yeah, I just put 2 words together. I know, before you look at me like a crazy lunatic, allow me to explain myself. I was at my place of work, and I don't know how I got there. I guess I decided to be a responsible human being. And while I was there, we had a new hire, a guy about my height, much younger than me though. They're making him different. Nowadays, I don't know how he was my height and younger than me, but yeah, whatever. It's fine. I'm not pressed about it at all. But what I noticed about this guy instantly was his face, the way he looked. And it wasn't like a angry face. It was more of, how do I say this? Like, get the fuck away from me. Don't talk to me. I want nothing to do with any of you guys. I'm just here for the money and the money only. Well, I mean, I can respect that. And even though I'm an individual that likes to have conversations with people, I also can respect people's boundaries and say, if you don't want to be bothered, I won't bother you. It's as simple as that. So I gave him what he wanted, and I kept my distance. Now, weeks go on past, and I hear the most extravagant thing. I'm talking to another coworker, a higher up, and she pulls me aside to tell me something that not only surprised her, surprised me, and I guarantee will surprise you. So she told me this. She said she pulled him aside and she wanted to congratulate him on the work that he's been doing. He's been doing a great job. He's becoming an important member of the team. Now, I personally have never gotten that. No hard feelings though. It's fine. It's fine. Now, she said as she was telling him this, she noticed a few things on his face. She said this. She said she noticed he started to smile, laugh, and almost come off a bit nervous, like his face was turning red. You know those moments where you're doing something out of the kindness, out of the fullness of your heart. You don't even mean to be doing it at that efficiency, but you're doing it. Someone notices it and they congratulate you, and like kind of makes you nervous and all that. That's the kind of expression that she described to me was on his face. Now, you can only imagine what I thought in that moment. I was completely baffled, utterly surprised. Like, how is it that this kid that I made a preconceived judgment on could smile? He actually possessed laughter. He could get nervous. Well, I didn't think this was possible at all. And so this made me realize something. A crucial lesson is that bitterness is actually very contagious. So contagious. What I mean by this is that the bitterness on his face found its way through air, land, and sea to a deep, dark place, which is my soul, and proceeded to corrupt my soul to give a negative behavior response. I'm not blaming the kid at all for the way his face was. No, I'm saying my perception of his face, me thinking that he was angry when he really wasn't. That's what invited bitterness into my soul. And I say this to say is because this is how society operates. I've noticed is that when you're outside, when you're doing your own thing and you want to talk to someone, you want to say hi, you are reluctant. You don't want to do it. You want to save yourself the embarrassment. Trust me, I've been there. Yeah, who wants to be embarrassed? Who wants to say hi to somebody and they just walk fucking past you? It's just fucked up. It's a fucked up experience. It's not okay. But a lot of the times it's just perception. It's what you see. When you see someone in a certain demeanor, they have a certain face on their face, you tend to want to avoid them and say, well, I think that you will ridicule me and you will say things that will hurt my feelings. So no way in hell that I will approach you or say anything to you. Meanwhile, the person could be the nicest person on earth. Now, to address the elephant in the room, relationships. How does this pertain to relationships? Buddy, random guy on YouTube, what are you trying to get at? Here it is, I'll tell you. I think bitter people. Now, before that, I think we should dissect the bitter person. How does a bitter person become bitter? Well, they start off hurt, right? When you're hurt, you have the decision to either stay pure or get bitter. And I actually learned this very crucial lesson on a video game, a game called Infamous 2. I think that's the game. And I probably just bonded with a lot of you guys right there. Yeah, it's a great game. So my mother was going on a trip once for work, and her friend, lovely lady, offered to, look after us while my mother was gone, obviously. And this lady had a brother who had a gaming system, to which, to my surprise, when I was introduced to, man, it felt like I belonged. It almost felt like my calling, almost felt like something I should have been doing my whole life. I should have been playing video games my whole life. What I came to find out was this extravagant game, Infamous. And in this game, this guy can literally suck the shit out of anything. Lightning. Pause. He can suck lightning out of anything. Anything electrical, you name it, he can suck the shit out of. Simple. And his lightning was blue. Remember that, because that's going to be important. Now, in this game, you are the main character, and this character suffers a traumatic moment in where he can either take revenge or he can choose to remain pure. Now, if he takes revenge, his lightning turns red. And if he chooses to be pure, well, his lightning stays blue. You can only imagine the decision that I made as a young kid playing the game. Of course, I wanted to see what it felt like to have red lightning. Now, I love this example because it is actually the exact replica of how life works. I've come to notice. You literally have the option whenever something traumatic happens to you, whenever it is you go through any experience or circumstance, you have the decision to choose two paths. You can either be a bitter person or you can be a fruitful one. And I think that's what happens a lot of the times in this dating aspect, is that when people go through these circumstances of dating, that they pick up bitter behaviors that stays with them. That's why I like to practice this rule. I kind of made it up in my own head, that if you're not someone that's able to take a beating constantly and not let it affect you, well, then you shouldn't take that beating. And in this case, that beating is dating, because essentially you're going to see a bunch of different people. You're going to experience a bunch of different circumstances that will then alter your reality or alter the way you think about relationships. And now I say bitter people is because, well, maybe you could be a peaceful person, minding your own business, living life. And out of nowhere, life says, well, your life is too peaceful, so let's ruin it. Let's do something to give them a bit of a challenge. No, we cannot have you strolling the fucking earth smiling. Are you serious? No, fuck no, it's not going to happen. So what we're going to do is throw a bitter person your way. And like I said, bitterness is contagious. So what happens when you get a bitter person? You get them trying to throw bitterness your way. Here's how it happens. They literally bake a nice little cookie and they throw it in the form of a frisbee into you like a dog. And they say, here, no, take a bite. It's a nice little tasty cookie. And trust me, it's very attractive. It's a very good looking cookie. But once you take a bite out of it, oh, it tastes nothing like grandma's. No. That cookie is bitter as fuck. Now, the whole point of that is to basically say that just because someone throws out something, just because someone wraps something up and wants to give it to you, doesn't mean you have to take it. Doesn't mean you have to take a bite. Doesn't mean you have to follow that narrative, that idea that they're trying to push out. Because I'll tell you what happens. A lot of people think, oh, let me be bitter in retaliation to show this bitter person how it is to be around them. But a lot of the times what happens is bickering. You just go back and forth, and I don't have fucking time for that. You don't have time for that. So we're just going to avoid them. We're just going to see what they bring, their insults, and we're just going to set it aside. There's no reason to be bitter. There's no reason to adopt the same feelings that they have. Because essentially you cannot produce something that's not inside of you. You cannot get orange juice from apples. It's just not gonna happen. Never. Not in this reality, not on this plane, not on this earth. And so that's why when someone insults you, when someone says something out of their heart that's a bit bitter, understand this. It comes from deep within. It comes from a judgment of their own character. I mean, even if they make a comment on you. They say something about what you're doing. It has actually nothing at all to do with you. No, I guarantee you this. I can promise you this. From what I've seen basically on this earth, these 23 young years that I've been on this earth, I've seen that a lot of bitterness doesn't come from something else. It doesn't, no, nothing makes you bitter. You're already a bitter person. It just needs something to activate. That's all it is. And so when people insult you and people treat you a certain way, when they have a nasty, harsh, when they live in disdain, trust that they are living in their own disdain. They don't like their thoughts. They don't even like themselves. So really, there is no point to hold on to things when people insult you. And so in this whole dating aspect, essentially what it is bitter people dating bitter people, and then making their own judgment, making their own conclusions, and then coming to speak about it to then influence the youth, to influence people who maybe don't even date as much, to give a certain idea and push out and say, well, men are trash. Women, no, don't even bother. Well, that's the only way to get even more separate, at least from what I've noticed. I'm making a hypothesis. Well, if two people who still want to date each other hate each other, well, what's the outcome? Obviously dissonance, obviously destruction. There's no other outcome. So keep this in mind as you date people, as a young person even, that you're going to experience different realities. You're going to experience different people. It doesn't mean that this is how everyone is. I know, it's hard. It's hard, trust me. I actually want to shout out the person that commented on my short about this very topic. I don't think the short itself had anything to do with the topic you wanted to discuss, but if you somehow find yourself on this video, I hope you paid attention. And I think I'm actually going to speak about this a lot more often. I'm going to give my opinion of what I've noticed personally in relationships in all aspects, not just dating, but, you know, friendly relationships, maybe your relationship with God. I think all those are pretty important topics that need to be discussed, especially while you're young, because this is the building blocks. This is when you build the blocks. Right? This is where you build a nice little base. If you don't have a base, well, we all know what happens when you don't have a base. The tornado, if you're not a strong pole in the wind, where you're going to be moved. If your roots aren't planted into the ground, well, as soon as the wind comes, here you go. You're just another tree that just gets moved. But unfortunately, trees don't get moved because their roots are deep in the ground. So I don't even know why I used a tree for this example. It was a poor example, but you're a good person. You're not going to judge me for it, right? Anyways, I thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you for allowing me to come share my piece. You know the deal. You better come back. You have to come back because I have more heat on the way. But thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys. And I'll see you next time.